Greetings from the Eccentric Man. I was going to be putting up a showcase of the Templar army, but the table's full of Christmas goodies, so we're going to have to make do with my first game of Dragon Rampant. Many thanks to Lost Night Games for the support through 2022, and check them out online for your gaming goodies. A first run out for my Dwarves. They were initially built for Oathmark, but we're now running into Dragon Rampant. So what have I got? I've got some Rumbuck Raiders, elite cavalry, an elite unit of foot with the Queen in command, a unit of skirmishers, a unit of light bow, a heavy infantry unit with a wizardling, and then a giant who is counted as bellicose infantry. You can upgrade the units in Dragon Rampant, so I upgraded my elite infantry and gave them venomous. It means that any sixes that they roll in attack will count as 2 hits, so that was quite useful. I then had 3 spells on my wizardling, which was Befuddle-Thee. That would batter a unit that was not battered. Then it was Stronger Shields. It would give them +1 armor, and then the last one was to remove a spell from the opponent. So that was my army. John's army is based on his El Cid army, and he's changed a few little bits around to give it a little bit of a magical feel. So what he had was a light horse unit with missiles. He had an elite cavalry unit at the front with the leadership upgrade, so they don't have to test for wild charge. He then had a heavy infantry unit with his commander, and he had a unit of scouts, and he had a unit of bow, and he had a separate magic user, which was his bishop. And the bishop had 3 spells. I only know that he had a Wrath of God, he called it, which was a thunderbolt one, I think. I didn't know what the other 2 were. If I did tell you, though, it'd spoil it. So you'll have to wait and see how the game progressed to see what happened. As we were playing my first game, we just thought we'd do the first scenario out of the book, which is just a meeting engagement. So we put the units down alternatively. John won the run-off, and he got me to put it down first. And then we rolled off to see who went first, and he got the highest again, but he asked me to go first as well. So there we go, that's how it was. For the terrain, we got the rocks on the left. They were the rough going, and then we just had a couple of woods that you could see through, and then you had the tower, which didn't do anything, but that was it for the terrain. I had thought about overdubbing the commentary, but because it was quite noisy down there, but I've had a look at it and listen, and it seems okay. So please bear with me. It's a game taking place on a gaming night at the store. Right, we're set up. We're playing Scenario A, which is just sort of a straightforward meet and engagement. So I've got my Rumbuck Raiders over here. And heavy infantry with my wizardling. You can see him with the raven. Another unit of heavy infantry. My elite infantry. Bert the giant. Light missiles. And some scouts over in the Skull Hill. John has matched me with his scouts on that side. Heavy infantry, John?
Right, so we got bow unit.
Bow unit. Oh yeah, of course they have got bows there.
Yep. Heavy infantry.
Yep.
Elite riders.
Uh-huh.
Spiders that should be wolves or dogs. I've got to bring them. And light cavalry. So that's it. And the woods are just woods. Woods are woods.
Woods are woods.
Hills are hills.
Hills are hills. Difficult ground hills or just hills?
Well, you can't make difficult ground because we've gone in post put scouts in which won't really care about
Right, okie dokie. So that's what we have so far. An inauspicious turn 1 for my dwarves. So unfortunately, I only had 1 unit that moved, which is the bowman over here. The giant failed. The unit of heavy infantry here failed. And then I rolled a double 1 for this unit here, and that was the end of my turn, which was a bit disappointing. John, on the other hand, has moved most of his up forward. He's got Goda for his leader trait, and that allowed him to move 1 unit without taking an activation test, so that was good.
So he's moved up the front heavy infantry here and the bowmen to their side. The scouts moved up in the rough hills. The war beasts in the centre through the woods, and then the light cavalry up on the flank. But fortunately for me, not for John, his elite cavalry, no, heavy cavalry, failed their activation test. So
No, they are elite cavalry.
they are elite cavalry. So a little bit of a reprieve for me. So into turn 2. Slightly better move for me this turn. So we did manage to move Bert the Giant up, and the bowman on the left, and also the scouts on the top. So that was good. Perhaps not so good in the middle. We were able to move up the heavy infantry with the wizardling. So he's moved up, which is quite good. But the other 2 units failed to move. So that's the elite with my general. He failed. Well, she failed. And then the heavy infantry in the middle failed. But I did risk it for a biscuit, as they say, and I moved up the Rampant Raiders to within 10 of the light cavalry. Into John's turn, and this was his first roll to get them to fire at my elite cavalry, and unfortunately they failed the activation test. John then passed to move the cavalry up into the line, but unfortunately the scouts on the top failed their activation test, and John went for the better part of valour and stopped while his troops were in a line. So we go into turn 3, and I've got a wild charge test over here. Yeah, that's right, yeah. So moved up the infantry into line as best I could, and then unfortunately we rolled a double 1 over here. So bowmen didn't move, scouts didn't move. John in this turn just sort of stayed where he was, but unfortunately over here I took a counter charge of the war beasts, and of course the war beasts were in the forest, weren't they? So I go down to armour 2 and weapon skill 5, and I got trounced. And yes, I did pass my morale test, but yeah, I should have really known, because I did this to John the other day in Lion Rampant. But there we go, that's how it is. They're probably going to get shot pits in John's turn next time. I've got 1 move to try and rescue this rider, so we'll see if we can put on a bit of a rescue act. So we're going to go into turn 4 now, I think it is. So we'll see what we can do. Odd little turn. So I did manage to get the Queen's unit to move up into line. That was good. And I used my Wizardling with the Raven to cast Befuddle-Thee on the war beasts, and that caused them to become battered, so they couldn't do anything. They couldn't charge my Rampant Raider, so that was a bonus. Unfortunately, I failed his leadership test because I failed to move a unit over here. Failed to move the giant, so he didn't go. And then that meant I had a +1 on the Rampant Raider, and I rolled a 5 and he needed a 6, so that was a bit of a shame. My bowman moved up into range of John's, and my scouts moved up to the edge of the rocks here. John didn't do very much over here. Again, he rallied the war beasts because he had to do that, but his light bowman on the horses failed, which was a little bit of a reprieve for me. So into the next turn, his firing killed his bow's shot and killed one of my men, but I was able to pass the test and they're okay. So in a move 5. Well, I think this is the end of turn 5. And what we have this time is my Wizardling cast Befuddle again on the war beasts over here. The war beasts were over here, but because they were befuddled, they couldn't do anything, and the cavalry failed, and my Rampant Raider is managed to escape. Then, in the rest of my turn, I sort of stayed more or less still. Moved up Bert to the edge. The bow fired at John's and managed to kill one, so returning the favour. I ummed and ahed about skirmishing up with these and then failed the activation, so they stayed where they were. John's moved forward to skirmish and took a shot, but failed because these are armour 3. They would be armour 1, but they're hard to hit, so that makes them to 2, and then their in cover takes them to 3. John's boat, you failed to shoot, didn't you, with those? You failed your activation with them? The bow, yeah, so they failed their activation. The wizard tried to play it to cast Power Bolt, Wrath of God, on Bert, but unfortunately failed to cast it. And then when John tried to rally the battered unit of war beasts, they failed, and it was very close to going. But double one, they did stay, but had to retreat and remain battered, but they lose one more for retreating whilst battered. So a little bit of a lucky turn for me there, as we moved into the next one. Let's see what else we can do this time.
I've got over to the other side of the battlefield to have a little look. So, what have we done this time around? We moved up most things. We moved up didn't move the scouts, but we did take a shot with them, and we managed to kill one of John's scouts. I rolled 3 6s, so that managed to duff one of those up. My bowman over here, the dwarf bowman, managed to kill another one of the enemy, but they passed their test, so that was okay. I've moved the giant up to the edge of the wood, and then moved my 3 units up to level with the giant. I was quite pleased that all of them moved this time around. What did I try and do? I tried to cast a spell. Oh no, I didn't. I just moved. You either move or cast a spell if you've got the wizardling in the unit. So I moved. Moved my lone rider over here. I must have called him the Lone Raider. John moved up his cavalry, rallied his war beasts, and then he was going to do his bow to shoot, and roll double one, and that was his turn finished. So, a bit of a shame for John. Things just didn't go well for that bit of army there. They've stuttered a bit. But into the next turn, and we'll see what we can do.
Well, an interesting turn with bits of combat. So let's have a little look first. What happened first was the Rampant rider had to do a wild charge, so he wild charged towards the light cavalry. The light cavalry did have a battered marker. They did, didn't they?
No.
Didn't have a battered marker? Didn't, no.
Because we changed it.
Yes, they failed that activation.
To evade.
Yeah, to evade. So he had to stand and take it. And unfortunately, I beat him, which was quite a surprise. And then they failed their courage test, and they've gone back and battered. So he was quite good. Over here, the wizardling cast Befuddle on the bishop, so couldn't do any magic on this turn. I charged up my Bert the Giant out of the woods, and he was out in the open. Bowman shot at John's bowman, and we killed 2, and they failed their courage test and had to go backwards. Over on this side, I think I killed 1, didn't I? Oh no, I failed activation. Failed activation this turn, so mixed. Oh yeah, and of course the Queen's unit failed to move again. So that's 3 turns that they failed to move. So that was a bit of a shame. So yeah, into John's turn. They failed again, didn't they?
They failed and lost a figure
and had to go back again and lost another figure to battered.
John's moved up the war beasts to harass my little lone raider. In the centre, John's heavy infantry charged Bert the giant. I did 2 casualties, and John did 4 on my man, but we both failed our leadership tests and bounced back, so that wasn't good. Over in the centre, John's elite cavalry charged into my spearmen, and John did win. You caused 2 casualties to me, and I caused 1 back to the cavalry, but passed the tests, and I bounced back because I was the defender. So I think that's about...
My scouts.
Oh yeah, and John's scouts on this side over here killed 2 of mine, and fortunately I passed my leadership test. I needed a 5 to pass and rolled a 7, so that was lucky because that was very close to being battered over there, I think. So yeah, that was an interesting turn. I'm going to see what we do now as we go into our next turn. I've got 2 wild only 1 wild charge, so that's a bonus. So we'll see how this goes. Interesting. Well, the turn has sort of swung to the dwarves this time. So over here, I had a wild charge, and they charged into the wild beasts and duffed them up, and the beasts retreated. So that was quite good. And then over here, they rallied. There wasn't much I could do with those. My Wizardling cast Befuddle on the bishop again. Oh no, the Wizardling cast Befuddle on the cavalry unit that was at the front and passed, and they became battered, which meant that I could charge up with the Queen's unit. So she advanced up. They have Venom, which means that any 6s do 2 hits. That gave me 2 hits, 2 kills on the cavalry, and they failed their morale, and they went back and lost another man. My giant failed its courage test, went backwards, battered, and lost another wound, so he's down to 5. I tried shooting my bowman at the other unit of bows, but didn't cause any casualties. Over here, the scouts failed their test. Oh no, they did kill 1. Sorry, they did kill 1. On John's turn, very sad for him, the cavalrymen failed their rally test, so they retire battered and lost another figure. John went to cast replenishment, which would give troops or wounds back, but failed, which is a bit of a shame. He rallied the infantry in the centre. I think the bow, they had to rally, so I didn't do casualties. Did I do casualties to the bowman, John?
No, you didn't this turn, no.
No. So I didn't do anything there. But there was no... I think they failed their leadership test. Yeah. So they didn't kill anyone this turn. So yeah, I think that turn it was a definite plus to the dwarves. So let's have a look on this side. My bowman could only shoot at the scouts, so we did kill a scout. So John had to take a courage test, and they became battered and retreated. Over here we did befuddle on the bishop, and
he couldn't do any magic spells. Over here, sadly, the Wild Rider had to charge past its leadership, so went into the forest, which was a bit silly against the War Beast, but there you go. In the centre, the Queen's Guard has moved forward, and the heavy infantry has moved forward in support of them as well. And that was, oh yeah, and I did have an hour about moving the scouts out to harass the other scouts who decided against it. But then in John's turn, he failed his courage test, and they've lost another man and gone backwards again. So there's only 2 scouts left up there, which was a bit of a shame really. In the centre, John's bowman shot at my Queen's Guard and killed one, but they passed their tests, so that was okay. Centre unit was just out of 6, so couldn't charge. The cavalryman passed his courage test, so he's alive. And then on this side, the light cavalry have moved up, but the war beasts duffed up the Lone Raider. So I've lost that one. So yeah, bit of an evening up, I think, that turn a little. So let's move into the next one. We're getting down to the wire now. I've moved up the scouts here, moved up the bowmen to try and get them in range of John's fighters over there. In the centre, I moved forward with the Queen's unit to get into a charge range of the warriors. Mixed fortunes there, but we'll come back to that one. Warriors in the centre, moved them up to give a bit of protection. Obviously over here I'd lost my Wild Rider. I got a little bit out of sync with this side. I played in the previous turn with my Wizardling. In my turn I played Stronger Shields on the Queen's unit, so it took him up to armour 5. John in his turn tried to cast his magic with his bishop, but unfortunately failed again, so his bishop I think hasn't passed any test, has it? No, it hasn't passed the test.
He's going to be reduced to a vicar at the end.
He's going to be a vicar. Over in the centre here, the warriors charged into the Queen's unit. Did kill 2 of mine, but I'm fortunate enough to pass my courage test. John's troops didn't. John's rolled atrociously, really, tonight. So they've gone backwards. The bowmen didn't do anything at all, did they?
No.
Oh no, did they? Did
No,
they killed one man?
Killed one.
So I had to take a test on that one, and I passed that as well. Over here, John's cavalryman charged in against the heavy warriors and lost because I rolled really well, and John rolled really poorly. And the war beasts ran in to attack my heavy warriors, and I rolled really well, and John didn't roll really well. So sadly, his war beasts have gone back battered. And John tried to shoot his light cavalry at my infantry on the side here, and he failed his activation test. So it was not a good turn for John on this occasion. So we're going to go into my turn. It might well be the last turn. We'll see how we go. So we're going to call it there. John's conceded. But how did this turn run out? Well, the Queen's unit charged in, didn't quite do as much damage as I'd hoped that they would to the opponents, and the opponents. It was even Stevens, wasn't it? But you bounced back because you had the 1 casualty.
Yeah, I had 1 casualty.
One casualty and battered, wasn't that? And battered. Yeah, you got
no,
failed. Failed. That was it. Failed the test and battered, so they went backwards. My heavy infantry obviously were a bit worried by the bishop and failed to charge him. John over here moved up and took a shot, but didn't kill anything, did I? With the oh no, the bowmen moved, so they couldn't shoot. And I've moved the scouts up into the stony ground. I failed the Stronger Shields with the Wizardling, so they didn't do very good. And then it was on to John's turn. He managed to kill 1 of the unit, but I passed my test. The bishop failed his magic test again, so that wasn't very good. The bowman
Shot at them.
Shot at them, but failed to kill.
Yep.
And
They failed them.
Failed their rally test, didn't they?
Yeah. So they fell back.
They fell back.
And then my scout killed it.
And the scouts on that far side failed their test, and they went as well. So, so a win to the Dwarves in my first game of Dragon Rampant. But John was very let down by his dice rolls. And I think the man of the match, or dwarf of the match, was the wizardling, who managed to cast everything apart from one spell. So Befuddle seemed to work quite well.
And on the opposite hand,
John never passed one spell at all with his bishop, which was a bit sad.
Well, my first game of Dragon Rampant, and it went well. The Queen's unit were victorious, so well done her. Yeah, enjoyed it. I did like the combination of the Befuddle and then charging units. That worked quite well. So yeah, I liked it. I think we'll be playing Dragon Rampant and Lion Rampant and Rebels and Patriots a bit more in the club this year. Trying to focus on a few rules rather than hundreds of them that are out there. So keep tuned for 2023. We'll be looking at pike and shot as well, I suppose, for the English Civil War. I'll try and get the pictures of the Templar army up after Christmas now, I would think, because it's going to be pretty busy, so I don't think I'm going to be able to get them spread out on the table to take photographs of them. Anyway, to 2023, Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year. Don't forget, hit that button for subscribe and like, and hit the notification buttons. Until next year, take care.